Hey guys, welcome back to Big Lake Hot Rods. Today I wanted to just show and kind of start with doing the instruments and the gauge cluster on the car. I went ahead and I kind of alluded to on the last video that I ordered some gauges, or I had decided at the time I hadn't ordered them, but I've ordered them and they came in, and I'm just going to show you guys what I got, and I'll go ahead and start. I've kind of already started working on the gauge cluster a little bit in cardboard just to kind of get a basic design with some cardboard aided design, and just kind of been playing around with it a little bit and made two variations so far, but let's flip the camera around and I'll show you what I got. All right, so I was fumbling around the internet and I found a company that makes gauges the company's called Marshall. Not sponsored by them, but they were super helpful. I emailed them and immediately got a response and was back and forth with a couple of questions, and they were real helpful with helping me decide, some options I had and some things like that. So I figured the dash in the car is all handmade and it's mimicking the original, but it's a little bit bigger in proportions. So the opening is bigger. So I started playing around with this. Look at the gauges out first. I've gone ahead and went in with a 5-inch speedometer and a 5-inch tack, but I was worried that these may be a little too big in comparison to these, but they line up and in my mock-ups, they work real well. So I'll pull these out and I'll put them in my cardboard template here and get backed up a little bit. So this is kind of what I came up with first. Actually, this is my second version. This was my paper template version. I went ahead and did that and just kind of laid them out. This was before I even bought the thing. So I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what they look like, and this is the actual opening I have to mess with as far as in the dash. I have decided to change the way they're splayed out a little bit. I just straighten them up straight up and down. So this is a version of that, and you can tell a little bit of a difference as far as the auxiliary placement. And I may come in here with a little piece of trim along the middle, piece of aluminum or something like that. Trying to still look for a piece of, I think it's half round. And so it's flat on the back side and just round on the front. And I'll bring a piece of chrome there. And I would like to bring the chrome all the way across the dash and tie into a script, the Falcon script. I've got this original piece of script so I could put that on the other side of the dash, and then have the chrome trim kind of tie into that F, the center of the F there, and that would help kind of make a transition instead of transitioning along the top of that, the curved part of the F. And who knows, I may see about making this even bigger too and kind of bring the proportions up a little bit bigger. I'll place this on the dash when I get back to the car and see how it fits, but it's pocked up and kind of nasty. So what I'll probably end up doing is figuring out a way to strip that off and sand it and get that filled in with some body filler. It's maybe some metal filler, and just paint this thing silver to match this, to match that color. But I did make a second. This was actually my first version, and I thought maybe the gauges would look cool laid out, but I did this when I was away from my template and I forgot how much room I had, so I just kind of went with it and just let my creativity flow with it. It may be pretty archaic, but just gluing some cardboard together, but it really helped me figure out that this ain't gonna work. So no harm, no foul. Some glue and some cardboard, chunked it, and came up with this guy. And now it is a little more simple, but that's kind of where I'm kind of headed with it. Simple, but different. And we'll get the gauges in here. That's kind of where I wanted to go with it. The way the dash is built, the bottom edge, it kind of leans. The top of this is tipped towards the driver, so the bottom edge is inset. And I had to tip it a little bit forward because the brake booster being back there behind all this, I didn't want to crowd it. So I pushed all this forward, and that kind of gave me the room I needed. And I think it looks good. This will be easy to build out of some sheet metal. Simple, yet still got a little bit of something to it because it sticks out. And go from there. And I'll probably put my blinker lights up here or even below, depending on how I can see them. This is the dash, kind of curves over the top of that, so I may not be able to put anything up there and actually see it. I still got a lot of work to do before I decide where the lighting will go. But everything else is hidden, so I don't really want to start cluttering this up with. I don't even want to see the screws that hold it in place, so I got to figure out a way to bolt it to the dash so that you can get it out and get to the switches and get to the brakes and things of that nature. So, but I don't want to see the bolts, so I need to figure out a way to do that. But all in due time. But I just want to share that for now, and we'll keep going with it. This week is what I'll be working on, making this cluster and hopefully get it made out of some sheet metal, and we can move forward with that, and that'll help me move forward. The next step will be some wiring, and I'll be able to get all that done. This also came with your senders. Obviously, you'll need a sending unit for your oil pressure and your temperature. I did like these little pods that fit on the back side of the gauge. My other gauge set didn't have anything like this. So this is, just sandwiches the gauge in between the metal. Unfortunately, if I go with the design I have, I can't even use the things. So I don't know if I could get someone to 3D print me a set. That might be cool. I came with each gauge came with some little pigtail, and this is for calibrating the speedometer. So I'll be able to make a little harness and make this removable as a unit, and be able to service it a lot easier. But yeah, we'll get this out of some sheet metal, and we'll keep moving forward. Working on the gauge panel here, I've kind of been playing around with some cardboard, and I feel like this is a pretty good setup for where I'm going with. I think the 5-inch gauges were the right choice. This is kind of a view from the driver's seat, so that's what you'll be looking at. The next step is obviously to make this out of steel, and I'm gonna bring these edges in here and make a curve in, curve back towards the panel, and then make a flat plane for this panel to kind of bolt to. I know y'all heard that jerking because I thought those things were about to fall. But yeah, I'll make some steel, make something out of steel there, and we'll see. We'll move right along. I'm really liking that so far. It's just been cutting cardboard. It's kind of boring, measuring, cutting. I've used 2 or 3 pieces of cardboard to kind of mock it up, but we'll keep moving forward with that. All right, so we got a simple panel made of flat steel. Cut out the holes there, the appropriate size. And along the top edge there, I've got 3 little tabs, and that's going to catch a flange that's in the dash. And then I've got 2 holes in the bottom corner for 2 studs. Simple. I'm going to start working on closing in these panels here. What I want to do is kind of curve it in. Use these curved pieces of just some old fence posts that I found, but it's curved. It's already easily curved and round, so I cut it into 4 sections, and I'm going to use it to curve it this way, and then on the back side curve it again, and I'm going to run a flat flange here so that this gauge panel just pops onto that flat flange, and you won't see any of these screws. I've already got it bolted in and screwed in. I've got 2 here and 2 on the back side, so you'll never see any of the fasteners or anything like that that hold it in place. And I'll probably end up putting blinkers here, and then bright lights, or maybe 2 more here, one for a check engine, one for a bright high beam indicator. Gauge pod is in place, and that's where it's going to be. So now I've got a kind of a destination, or a target, if you will, for where I want this metal to land. So we'll get to it, and I'm just going to start hacking up some metal until I like what I see. Got this curved part here tacked in. It aims right where, or lands right where I want it as far as the back panel there. I'm going to weld a piece of sheet metal in here and attach it to this, and I've got a flange on the back side. That's why it's clamped together. So this panel will just fall into place and land and be flush with that. So I'm starting to work here with this one. I'm going to curve it. I need to cut this flange off a little bit so that I can utilize this piece of curved steel. It's got a slight curve to it, and I'll curve that in and do the same thing, make a panel there to fit that. So I'm going to get that chopped off and keep making some progress. Ooh. Log feel all right? Yeah, it is. That is good. Too much. can't get nothing behind it. So. So we got welded panels in here. Dash bezel fits pretty good. And like I said, I was just going to grind all them down and finish weld them. And then got the nice transition to curve here. Curves back to this panel. This panel pop off and leave a flange there so that it can be reinstalled for service. Really happy with the way that turned out. So just a little more tweaking to do, a little more finish work, and it'll be on the way. All right, so the welding is done for the most part, other than a few little holes I've missed. But this is where I realized that I cannot get that panel out of there with that top flange in place. You can see the top two screws there where I've got it held in. So I end up having actually to cut that away and weld that top edge to the dash, and now the panel pops off like that. You can see those few lines there in the top where I had to cut and make that panel fit. So we've added some tabs to the panel and two studs along the bottom edge. We'll add those in a minute. And now I can swing up into the top, and on the bottom will kick in and bolt in from the bottom. So really only two bolts holding it in place. So it'll be easy to get out, easy to get in, and it'll just fit better. I pretty much welded myself into a corner and couldn't get it out, so had to kind of back up and punt, change a little bit, but no big deal. Sometimes you got to adapt when you're doing stuff like this. There's no instruction manual, so just added that top flange there, and that's where those three little tabs on the instrument panel will catch that top flange there. So yeah, just like I said, you got to adapt and you got to make changes. So we'll get this kind of finished ground off, and we'll keep working at it. So I'm going to take a unit bit here and just open up these bottom two holes on the corners just to allow that panel to swing in and clear the holes freely without kind of binding up and you having to really push and shove on it. I want it to just fall right into place. And once you line up the three tabs along the top flange, it does just that. It falls right into place. So I don't have to fight with it and push it in along the bottom two corners there. Just simple two little nuts on the back side, and that's what will hold that panel in place. Here we have the final gauge panel installed. All the metal work is finished up around it and ground down smooth, and I'm super happy with the results of this. It looks really cool. It looks even better when it's in the car driving it. The dash gauge is in place. I can now start working on a harness for that dash and pretty much wrap up the wiring as far as terminations go and try to figure out the routing of it. It's a mess in the car right now, but all the wiring is going to be routed through the console and go underneath there to the back side of the car. So got a lot of crap to hide and route. So now that I've got a lot of this stuff in place, I can start tackling a lot of that and putting it where I want it. So grinding and welding is still going to be part of the job for a while. Still got some cutting and grinding to do. Still got to work on these seat risers. They're almost done. That side's in, and you can see how much lower the seat is compared to the way I had it before. It's a few inches lower, and it fits right when you sit in it and grabbing the wheel and look into the gauge cluster. It just looks a lot better and feels a lot better. So that's the direction I'm gonna go with that. I'm just gonna get rid of those risers that I made, and it is what it is, part of the process. I want to go ahead and I want to get in here and fix this lip, the factory flange here where the fender folds in and fits up against this panel. I want to get rid of that because I can see it when the final product is going to be shown, I guess you'd call it. Still, obviously, I got a little lip here. I want to fix that and hammer that flat and weld it. But I want to make this lip go away. So what I'm going to do is come in here with a zip cut and rip down the seam and bring this flush and weld all that. Before I do that, I want to hammer these welds as flat as I can. I mean, it's going to be very, very hard to get in there because The fender's over here. There's zero room to get in there, so I may just have to take a pair of pliers and just kind of flatten it the best I can. But I want to make this lip go away. And I don't want to just pack mud in there and make it flush, because that's a lot of filler. And this panel here seems to be going out at an angle. It's actually going away from me, but I want to bring it in flush, and that'll help eliminate that lip. Then it goes all the way down to here, so it's going to be really difficult to get behind this panel. Originally, I was going to just drill out the spot welds and make a new one, but this thing goes all the way up into here and starts to really dive down deep right in here. So I'm going to cut, and I'm going to cut a little bit here, probably go all the way up to here and cut this away, and then bring it and then tack weld it, and that way it'll have some structure before I go ahead and cut this corner out of it, because it may make the fender just kind of go floppy. Even though this is welded here and here, it probably won't go anywhere, but just to be on the err on the side of caution, I may need to take the fender off to get to it and weld all this up. So probably end up doing that anyway, just to make it easier to get to. Let's see what we can come up with just to get rid of that lip. It's a lot of work, but in the end, I think it'll look a lot better. And I realized also when I was putting this panel in, this fender was pulled in a little bit at the bottom. So it's supposed to go like that. So it's not quite what I was looking for. And I don't know if that headlight ring will cover that up. If it will, that'd be great. But if not, I'm gonna have to add some material in here, and it's gonna suck and look like crap. But that's what happens when you don't pay attention. So I gotta line these holes back up too, the fender holes. Which is kind of weird, because maybe my panel down below is not right, because I had them holes lined up. All but that one down there is lined up. And this is what I'm talking about. The panel that I made here is not quite lining up with the fender. So before I get too deep into that, I want to make sure that I'm in the right track. This could be wrong, because this is a new panel compared to what this is, and this was bolted in. Get some measurements and see about where I'm at, and go from there. But there's a few things that I got going on here, and I need to kind of iron them out before I get too deep, and we'll get to it. We'll get it fixed up. All right, so I'm still at it, slinging some sparks here. I got this all cut and welded, and it's still got a few little bad spots in it, but that's way better than what it was. So it's not gonna need near as much body filler, but it will need some. You know, that's just the name of the game. I went ahead and gotta get this cleaned up. Gotta get the Dremel in there and get in there, because it's just too tight. What I'm working on now is closing in this gap, and I made a little filler piece here to close in this gap. And turn around there, that'll close that up nice and tidy. And once I get all that welded, the whole headlight surround will be cleaned up like I like it. Because that's where I'm getting at. Before, this was not exposed. The headlight cover had a big piece that went all the way around here and filled this gap up. And now that I'm changing the way the headlights are, the new headlight bucket, all this is exposed. I just noticed that's a little warped. I'm gonna hammer that flat. This is all exposed, so I wanted to dress it up and clean all this up, and I'll body fill it and paint it, and that way you'll never see all these nasty, ugly factory seams that they just covered up with a piece of aluminum. So same on this side, I'm gonna do that. This one turned out a little better, because I guess I wasn't as impatient. I don't know, but no warpage there. Just a little bit on the other side, it's not a big deal. I still gotta do the same thing, just cut it. That's what the seam looks like, where they just covered it up and made it look as best they could. So anyway, we'll get to it. I'm gonna keep cutting. I got some welding to do. I may go ahead and jump to the other side and cut and get it ready for welding. When I fire the welder up, I'll just be able to do it all at one time, and keep on trucking. Put the dimple die in that, and I went ahead and drilled it yesterday, dimple dye it, and get it welded in place. All right, she's dimple dyed. We'll get her this cleaned up, so I'm gonna get the welder fired up and get it in place. All right, bouncing around today, back at the home shop. I just wanted to show off the body work. I've been sanding on this fender quite a bit, and got it really tuned up and really looking good. There's a few little marks here and there, but a little bit of fine tuning filler will be good for that. I really only concentrated on the front nose section, you know, around the metal piece that I added, and this little flange here for the rock guard to readapt to the new fender and the new front apron area. Got a little primer on it, just so I can see the highs and lows. I'm gonna put a little more of this dry powder on it that I use. I like the dry because it's instantly usable. You don't have to wait for it to dry like paint. Guide coat. So that's what that is, a dry powder guide coat. I'll put a little bit on here and just scuff it, and it'll look really good. But this one's coming along pretty good. I've got a little more sanding to do in here. You can see, obviously, it's kind of scratchy. I haven't gotten to my 320 before I go ahead and prime it. Went ahead and just I filled the inside in just to skim the coat, just because it was kind of pockmarked up from grinding and welding, and it's just really, I just needed to have a place to put some excess filler that I mixed too much of. But all this will be underlined and coated, so you'll never see any of that anyway. It doesn't really matter. But pretty happy with that overall. And like I said, we'll get this driver's side caught up with the passenger side, and this is just crap I take home with me. That way I can do, because I can't weld and cut sheet metal like I can at the other shop. So this is what I can do here, and just makes a mess. Of course, that goes right into my house, which makes everyone just so happy. But we try to minimize that dust best I can. Of course, you can see how much it creates, and that's just, you know, that's just a little bit of sanding. It creates so much dust, it's unreal. But yep, that's it. We'll keep moving along. Thanks everybody for watching Big Lake Hot Rods. Appreciate the support, and thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next time. right, so we just swing the top part in, get it lined up with that flange that's in place, and bottom swings right in, no problem. Nice and clean install. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, and once I get the gauges in place, I'll show that off a little more.